say. I will try to summarize an enormous amount of scientific data, and if I should dwell in a more meaningful way, spending at least 10 minutes per publication, that would mean approximately in the order of 6 months of constant lecturing 24/7. Because the number of publications and the amount of data is just overwhelming, to say the least. I come from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, and as many of you know, we are famous because we do give people the Nobel Prize in medicine or physiology. And I have a position there since many years back. I also uphold a position at the Royal Institute of Technology, and they are indirectly involved in the corresponding Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry. And the reason for having a professorship at this place is because I have a PhD student who is doing work regarding building planning for persons with a functional impairment electrohypersensitivity. You know, mobile wireless telecommunication has been an extremely sweet piece of candy for Sweden, as for Finland, our neighboring country. You find two of the largest companies in the world, Sony Ericsson and Nokia, in these two countries. And of course that has also meant a tremendous wealth and income for all Swedes and for all Finns, including of course tax revenues in gigantic proportions, work positions, etc. But very early, and you know, mobile phone telephony and similar wireless techniques are a little bit more than 60 years of age, and they were introduced in full scale in Sweden in 1984. But very early, actually I should just move this computer somewhat. Very early, scientists started to think if there could be any side effects, unwanted side effects from this microwave exposure. And we started to write newspapers, tabloids, magazines and so on, and we started to appear in radio and television. And our simple question was, how dangerous are mobile phones? And this is an example from one of the tabloids, 1995. It was published in their debate section, and it's in Aftonbladet, the evening tabloid in Sweden, the largest one actually. And the debate editor of this tabloid, he added the picture to the right. That's not me, and it's not my car. And he wrote a text beneath it asking whether this very successful businessman had got out of business because of recession in the economy, or because he was killed by the microwaves from mobile phones. And people laughed. Everyone realized that you cannot kill anyone using microwaves. In Sweden only remembered the handsome guy to the right and not the ugly one to the left. But that's life, you know. I will show some examples from the Swedish newspapers all over the world. This is a typical example of the kind of newspaper articles you can read. This is from January 2002, and this article was actually published all over the world. And the reason was German doctors had investigated in Spain children's health, and what they did was that they exposed children to 1 minute of mobile phone use, and then they measured the effect on the electrical activity of their brains, the so-called EEG. And of course, it was a very important observation. All newspapers wrote about it. People were very upset all over the world. Scientists were not, because we had read about it some years before, but then it was experiments done on adults, and that actually only yielded 1 or 2 sentences in very few newspapers around the world. But this was about kids, about children, and of course the sensation was a fact. Here's another investigation, and now we leave Swedish newspapers and go to the most prestigious scientific journal regarding clinical research. This is from Lancet, also January 2002, and it's a description about cluster phenomena. In this case, 4 cancer cases diagnosed among children in one Spanish school. And again, people, especially parents, were very aroused by this fact. And overnight, there was a very fierce discussion in Spain, spreading all over the world. And I must say, nowadays, since then, the most common question I get, it's not about nanomolars or VIP or some type of killer cells in the spleen. The question is much more simpler than that. Is this technique safe for my kids? That's what people want to know, and that will be sort of the scheme or theme, for today's lecture. You have also seen this kind of articles. It's from The Sun, and it's March the 8th, 2003. And this describes somewhere in, I think, Northern Ireland, where people actually brought one of these huge antenna systems down because they got angry. They asked the municipality to reduce the exposure of children and people in this community, and they refused to do it, and therefore they just took the mass system down. And that's not, of course, the way democracy should work, but I can understand that sometimes people do get upset when they don't find the resonance among the politicians and civil servants that they are looking for. Very often also people feel, and this is from Norway, which are very active in